Welcome to the PeakDay podcast, where we talk about fertility and natural family planning with our friends. Today, I'm talking with Carlos and Victoria DeBale. Carlos and Victoria met through a young adult Catholic community, and while their first impressions of each other were less than ideal, over time they discovered that they were aligned where it mattered most in their faith and their desire for family. For them, NFP started as a commitment during marriage prep, then quickly became an invitation into deeper communication, trust, and self gift. Like many couples, they experienced challenges at the beginning, but those struggles became where they grew in their relationship and in their understanding of each other. Carlos and Victoria have lived NFP through many seasons, and Victoria's experience with irregular cycles and her ability to advocate for her health through years of charting was a powerful tool. They began teaching NFP several years ago, stepped away for a time, returned as a mentor couple, and are now stepping back in as an online teaching couple. Victoria is also now serving on the CCL Board of Directors. Today, they join us to share what they've learned about faith, marriage, and how practicing NFP can truly transform a marriage. Thank you, Carlos and Victoria, for being on the PeakDay podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Happy to be here.
So let's kind of start at the beginning. You both mentioned that your faith really became your own in college. Can you share that with us and maybe what that turning point looked like for you guys?
Sure. So for me, it was my freshman year of college. I was a cradle Catholic, grew up going to mass my whole life and received the sacraments. Was a religious ed kid, but I went through a lot of changes freshman year of college. New place, different set of friends, and some family circumstances were changing as well. And I was in mass on Sunday, and I was actually really angry at God because of all the changes that were happening. And I remember I walked up to receive communion, and I'm walking back and I'm praying, and I'm just like, I'm kind of letting God have it because I was kind of upset about everything changing, so many changes, and just like, I can't handle another change. And I just very clearly in that moment, as I was sitting there praying, get emotional talking about it, but I clearly heard him say, I am your constant. And that moment just kind of, I know that was like the moment in my life where there's sort of no turning back from such a clear message.
That's beautiful. I've got goosebumps on my arms. How about you, Carlos?
My story, by comparison, is less dramatic and spiritual. I feel as I was raised as a Catholic, I knew the differences of right and wrong. And it's just about implementing those choices, and it was much more incremental. And everything from choosing to go to Mass with my free time, choosing what kind of friends that you have, starting different groups and social groups from an array, and then seeing, okay, these are the ones I'm going to stick with. Like, these are the people who believe what I believe, what encouragement in my faith. And it was like, every step, every choice brings you a little bit either closer to God or farther away. And he keeps pulling you in. You keep trying to make the right choices, and you fall. Plenty of falls. But, God brought me to him.
We did not take to each other at first at all. We actually have a photo of the night we met because someone noticed everyone was wearing green shirts. So as you can see, we love green. Our wall is green. His shirt is green. But a bunch of people were wearing green shirts. They took a picture. So we have a photo of the night we met. And then
we're not near each other.
Yeah, we're like at opposite ends of the photo. No idea that, we would end up together. I was very involved in the Catholic group. I was maybe vice president at that point. I don't know. I was president my senior year, but we were dating, or we started dating when I was president. So I was, very involved in the group. He kind of saw me as like holier than thou person. he liked to tell jokes and kind of disrupt the meeting with jokes, and I would roll my eyes at him.
So going into marriage prep, did you have any knowledge of what to expect? I mean, did you know you were going to be taking an NFP class? And then when you did take that class, what were your expectations, and maybe what did you actually experience?
Sure. So I had never heard about NFP until I got to college, and I was in that young adult group, and one of the think he was the youth minister at the time. I just happened, people were casually talking, and he was talking about, oh, my wife uses this symptothermal method. She takes her temperature every morning. And there were a few of us kind of listening in and asking questions like, oh, wow, this is an interesting thing. I never heard about it. And so that really piqued my interest. So when we went to do marriage prep, I knew we were going to be required to take an NFP class. I don't know if it might not have been required in the Archdiocese of Miami at that time, but I knew our parish required it. So I knew we were going to have to take one, and I was really excited about it because the person who had spoken to me about it had really he had so much to say, and he had so much knowledge about his wife and her cycle, and I was like, wow, I kind of want that for my marriage. Like nobody had ever sat around and talked to me about how great birth control was. In fact, I had friends who were on it and would complain about all the side effects. And then here was someone talking about using this method and how great it had been for his marriage. And so for me, it was like a no-brainer. Like, of course, I want to learn that thing that has no side effects and is good for your marriage.
I cannot say it was a no-brainer for me. Definitely a brainer, whatever the opposite of a no-brainer is. But I was pretty familiar with it, just being involved in the Put Life group and how a lot of contraceptives are abortifacients that are out there. And so I had heard talks on it, not so much with the steps involved in it, but that it existed, and from both either like church events, even political, with the pro-life stuff. People always talk about natural family planning out there. So without having too much knowledge about it, it's like, okay, this is something we kind of, this is what we're supposed to do. This is what we're called to do. And I wouldn't say there was hesitation as I discovered more about it, but it was more like, come on, God, you're asking this of us? It's like that couple that taught us during the marriage prep. They became good friends about us,
yeah.
And they're the ones that eventually encouraged us to take the next steps and go into teaching. And we're still friends with them to this day, in our church life and our social lives as well.
Yeah, we clicked really well with them, and have, it's seen their children grow up. They've seen our children grow up, and it's been beautiful to have that support too, from them, to just, have someone to talk through any difficulties with, or questions. And I think too, their witness of using NFP in their lives was really powerful to hear, as well, for us to just know, hey, this is a couple just like us, kind of similar backgrounds and things like that, and sort of like, okay, if they can do this, we can do this.
So in class, you're encouraged for both of you to do the charting and the tracking. So so it's like a group effort, so to speak. How did that go for you guys in the beginning, Carlos? Did you just jump right in, and were you all in?
Yeah. So
I had the chart at my house. And I think I talked to him about it before we were married. Like, we had paper charts. This was pre PeakDay.
yeah.
But we definitely charted together, I think,
So I kept trying to postpone it as you know, I was not exactly excited or thrilled by it. So when we were taking the class a few months before we got married, I'm like, well, look, you know, you could keep charting. I'm not living with you, obviously. So when we get married and we live
That's
together,
right. I remember
then
now.
I'll jump
Yeah.
in. And then it was like, no, you got to be on the phone. I'm like, no, no phone, no phone. You start it off. I'll jump in, you know, after the wedding day. And that's kind of what it was in. So,
Yeah.
and we're jumping in there, and it's, um, I mean, I understood it very well. Like we did all the practice stuff, you know, and we kind of got it. But, I mean, you kind of know, like, okay, what matters and what could be kind of like not as important as other steps, you know.
We had been charting for a little bit, and we were talking about going to the beach one weekend, and like, oh, should we go today? Should we go tomorrow? And I was kind of like, oh, let's go tomorrow. I don't feel like it today. And he was like, well, you're gonna get your period tomorrow, so we should probably go today. And I was like, what? And he was 100% right. And I didn't understand how he could interpret his like lackadaisical chart with like I mean, this is horrible. No one should chart like this. Use the PeakDay app now, but but he just was able to interpret it that way. And he was right. He got it right. He knew my cycle, and then and I think too, in the midst of that, also just having regular conversations of what's the plan this month. Are we going to be open? Are we going to postpone pregnancy? And that was a big thing or topic of conversation throughout those early days too, right? Like, how careful do we want to be, and all of that.
Even with that, it allows us to kind of embrace this as not just like the Catholic contraception. You know, like you're always kind of open to it. So if we were being super strict and stressed about it, like if this was causing the stress, then it really maybe not be as pointing as, okay, well, how open are you know, in this? So, I mean, we had, let's call it our plans, but we were always open to God's plans and what He wanted for us. And so, in our interpretation, we're trying to align our plans with God's plans. So we decided to postpone pregnancy for a little bit into our marriage.
Oh, that's beautiful. So it sounds like the communication that you were able to practice with, charting and looking at the cycle and discerning every month kind of maybe spilled over into other areas of your relationship as well.
Yeah, I think at some point in the marriage, NFP was just kind of something else showing, hey, God put us together for a reason. Why we couldn't figure it out at the time. You know, maybe sometimes we still question it. But God knew what He was doing, and He was able to put someone that's like very diligent and follows all the instructions. Well, with someone that can help her relax and see the big picture, from where things are going, and then keeps me accountable for making sure that I don't skim over the details. And in NFP, in our life, even preparing the NFP talks and everything we do, this comes up all the time. um, we see this in helping our children with our school projects. We see this in planning a vacation, and I think as we kind of were going through the NFP, we've come to like respect the other's strengths in this, and like getting through some of the, it's called the discussions that NFP emerged, gave us the kind of confidence that we know we could get through other discussions that have emerged in our marriage. Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about how you, by practicing natural family planning every month to month, you're able to discern um, whether you need to postpone pregnancy if you've got a good reason, or then maybe you're going to transition to trying to conceive. What did that discernment process look like for you guys? Is that something you can share?
I mean, I think it's changed throughout our marriage how we've handled it, right? Obviously, with the first child, you don't know what to expect. And actually for us, we had been using NFP to postpone pregnancy, as Carlos was saying, just kind of, we had never lived together. We were also kind of fresh off of my parents' divorce, so I was dealing with that and kind of needed a minute. Actually saw a therapist for a little bit to kind of help me and help us in our marriage. And when we were kind of like, okay, I think God and my therapist helped me get to a better place. And we then actually just used NFP to conceive our first child. So that was really beautiful to kind of be able to do that. And then I think after that, it becomes a little different, because then once you have a child, it's like, okay, can we handle two? And
having tracked your cycle, and been, really faithful with using charting and all of that, how did that affect the way that you were able to, talk with your medical professional about your fertility? Did that make a big difference?
1000%. I'm so grateful to, again, to CCL and this method, because I did, especially after our fourth child, just my cycles went haywire. And I went to see my OB/GYN about it, and I was like, hey, this is not normal. Not that my cycles had been perfectly regular, but, I had been charting for, I don't know how many years, over 10 years. So you kind of see patterns and what's regular and what's not regular, and even accounting for kind of postpartum changes. This was not normal postpartum changes. And I had, those records as well. And I went back to my paper just like, this is really off. By now I was using the app, so I didn't have all of that on there, but I had it written down. And I showed the app to my doctor and what I had been tracking. And I was like, this is not normal. Is having really short cycles, really heavy periods, a lot of other symptoms like headaches and stuff. And she's like, yeah, it's not normal. They did some blood work, and her first offer was to put me on birth control to regulate my cycles. And I was just like, well, no. What's the root cause, right? Because she didn't offer birth control as, oh, that'll, she's just like, well, that'll just make you regular again and it will take away your symptoms. But it didn't address like the root cause of it. And so to me, that just, it didn't make sense. Like, you're throwing a Band-Aid on a gaping wound, even, not considering the moral implications of it that I also had issue with, but just from a logistics perspective, didn't make sense to me either. Thankfully, through my NFP teacher that I was still friends with, she recommended an NFP only doctor to me, and seeing that doctor and again showing her my charts and explaining everything, and she was able to find the root causes of everything that was happening. And it's been, really good. I'm still, now as I enter into my 40s, it's a different journey now too. But just to have that support and knowing that I can talk to my doctor and advocate for myself effectively because I have this data of my body and my cycles that are able to help her help me, right?
I think probably the more challenging aspects of NFP isn't even really the charting, and you kind of get to that because it's a very clear method. And I think the postpartum, before her period comes back to like a cycle, that part we felt was more difficult. Definitely caused some more discussions on that. And then with that, as we were talking about earlier, it just becomes another opportunity where God calls us for a yes, whether we're understanding or not. Because really, in the regular charting, as we've been talking about, there's so much science like behind it. You can really grasp it. Like even and we could really follow. In the postpartum, there's some point that's a little bit of like faith and being open to God, and being open to God when you really cannot handle another baby. It's like right after you had a baby. And that really becomes like, okay, are you believing the science or are you believing me? And then that's like, okay, God, we're following you, not just the science. Yeah. And so it's that trust factor has worked out with us for many years. And
I think too, like trusting each other though, like it's not like, oh, it's someone's fault if I got pregnant, right? Like, not seeing it that way, right? Like we're in this together. Um, I think I was hearing a talk one time and someone said, if you're using artificial birth control and you get pregnant, because it's not 100% effective either, you're so surprised by it. Like, how did I get pregnant? Whereas if you're using NFT and you get pregnant, you're like, well, we know how it happens. And
hey, if we have a lot of information.
If we go back and look at the chart, you can probably figure out why it happened. And so, again, it's just that extra knowledge where, yes, I mean, is it, are there days of abstinence that are hard? Or is there, a stress of dealing with it when maybe, I don't want to take my temperature in the morning or whatever it may be. But it's still like we do a lot of things. We brush our teeth every day, and it's a habit that you do that helps you know your body better and know what's going on. And so when you think of it in the grand scheme of things, it's really a small thing to do, and that can have so many great results, right, in many aspects.
I was just going to start asking you about your teaching, and you said that the couple that taught you maybe suggested that you become a teaching couple as well.
We actually, I don't think, had our first son yet when they approached us about teaching. We were pretty newlywed, and
they butted us up by taking us to dinner.
Yeah, every time they take us to dinner, we're like, what are they gonna ask us?
Ask us to get involved in?
No, just kidding. We've had meals with them without asks. But yeah, and then I think we got pregnant shortly because I think we didn't say no, but we were like, maybe we should have a baby first and see how this, like just have a little bit more experience before we become teachers. And then sure enough, we had a baby, and then we had two babies, and I think we finished our teacher training took like 3 years because we had two babies.
Oh yeah. So we're doing these teacher trainings like individual online self-paced
modules, yeah.
And we were so it was so bad at it. We eventually just went to the 3-day crash course.
Yeah.
And
Mike
then that was the only way we could do it.
Yeah.
Because if we don't go to the in-person 3-day crash course,
Yeah, and I was pregnant at that. I think I was pregnant with our third at that, or maybe second. I was pregnant with our second at the crash course, because then after that we had to finish a little bit, and then we started teaching. But yeah, Mike and Karen Manhart, who are like super teaching couples, came down to Miami and so we were able to finish it. And then thankfully the teaching couple who are friends helped us kind of get set up at a parish. And yeah, we taught for a few years until kind of COVID happened.
I think what we like to say is every time as we're about to do a teaching event, for whatever it is, it's almost like, oh, Vicky, why'd you sign us up to do this? It's like we have too many things going on. But she's like, whatever, we signed this up. And then after you do it, it rekindles the fire a little bit, even the marriage a little bit. You remember why you fell in love. It's like, oh man, look at the stories we tell again. Even from this podcast, I'm remembering old stories. Look what we built. It's good times.
Yeah, it's nice to connect with new couples too.
You mentioned a little bit about the PeakDay app and how you kind of transitioned from your paper charts to using the app on your phone. What would you say is like a benefit of learning on a paper chart and then maybe transitioning to the app, or maybe just learning on the app? Like, is there a difference, or are they, good either way?
I liked the paper, and I'm possibly one of the few people that enjoy the paper because um, it was a little bit easier. Like, hey, like you just physically hand the paper back to each other. I know I can log in, and we have the shared accounts, but and it just kept me more accountable because also you could tell if I haven't been doing it. Not that like I'm really glad we moved to the app. That's where the world is, and that's really I think all the benefits come from it. Personally speaking, learning on the paper, discussing things on the paper, especially like before at the beginning of your marriage, um, I'd recommend that. You know, but if that's not working for you, there's the app. So.
But I do think it's important to at least know how to use the paper chart and interpret it, because I think it makes you better at then understanding and interpreting the app.
I mean, the app came out as we were well into our marriage and well into using NFP and even in getting to know each other and my wife's body and cycle that our real interest in learning the app was really to become as teaching couples and able to talk to people about it. If we weren't in this ministry, I think we almost could have been kept doing the paper. But
it's quite possible.
The paper, I think, allowed us for more communication. Though I think the app allows for the type A personality to hit the thing every day, not miss a single day. Whereas, especially as we got later in our marriage, we're like, okay, we're in phase 3. Talk to me when you get your period, and we're back in phase 1. You can allow for that flexibility. I'm really glad we have the technology because then I think it'd be almost impossible to talk to people who have not adopted NFP, don't have a lot of even interest on the morality side of this, and be like, wait, you have to write stuff in paper. Like, it'd be a non-starter. And so we get some NFP questions, especially later on in our lives, from people that don't really have like a church interest in it, or they just more have I don't want to put chemicals in my body kind of natural aspect because it's more in style now in that world. And that the app, if it wasn't for the app, we couldn't even have those conversations.
Yeah, like it's nice to be like, oh, here I can, you have your phone with you at all times and kind of be able to show someone, hey, this is the app I use, this is how it, tracks, and all of that, because everybody's using apps to track their cycles these days. But you don't know what information you're getting from those apps or what they're taking, and so being able to like immediately show them, hey, this is PeakDay, this is how it works, you can download it here, there's videos to help you learn the method a little bit or introduce you to it. You can reach out to coaches if you have questions and that sort of thing. And so it's really nice. I did not walk around with my paper chart at all times. It's kept in my nightstand drawer, where the cold copies still are. So it's, as Carlos was saying, there's pluses and minuses to everything. So we're very grateful for the app. We have a soft spot for the paper charts.
At this point, you're teaching natural family planning to engaged couples. How would learning NFP make a difference for a couple that's already married, but they're not using a natural family planning method?
So I have a few memories of receiving questions from that group of people. And actually, I think it was really for the opposite intention of what most people think NFP is for. And instead of postponing pregnancy, they were trying to use NFP to conceive pregnancy. And so I think in a couple of examples that come to my mind, that was kind of like where they were going to. But in general, as we've kind of had conversations with married couples that are just trying to turn their life to God in any sort of way, Obviously, from people that weren't married in the church and are now exploring, hey, should we get married in the church? But it's people that, who weren't were using contraception, they just don't feel right, kind of getting into that for any reason. As I said, either they understand the church's teachers and want to jump on board, or frankly, they're just looking for a more natural way of not putting more chemicals in their body. We've had those type of kind of conversations.
I mean, I think in the same way, and I feel like we were talking about this the other day. I forget with who, but if you've been married for a while or been together for a while, then you don't have because I think there was, as we talked about, there's a little stress of like learning NFP as a newlywed because you're also learning how to live together and starting out in marriage. So it's actually kind of interesting. I feel like the couples who are learning it having they don't have that newlywed aspect. They're like, okay, for whatever reason they're here to learn it now. It can be more of a focus for them, I think. I think they've had good questions. We've had some couples who we've worked with, whether in CCL or we do marriage ministry now, like the focus that's now called something else, fully engaged. So it's different for them, but we certainly encourage them to be open to it. And again, not just see it as another thing that like, oh, the church wants me to learn it so I can get married in the church, but like hopefully to understand, you're feeling this call or this pull to get married in the church, and just be open to exploring all that the church wants to give you and welcome you into this. And I always tell people, don't think of it as like rules, but just it's really guidelines to love. Like at the end of the day, that's what our faith is, right? Is in the end we're judged by how much we love, and God is love. And so how can I love my spouse the best way, right? And by being open to who they are as human beings and their fertility and loving them fully.
And Vicki, I loved your comment about NFP is not necessarily rules, but guidelines for love and marriage. That's beautiful. So, Couple to Couple League is celebrating 55 years this year. And you have lived NFP like as students, as as a married couple, as teachers and mentors. What do you think is the lasting value of this work for marriages today, based on your experience?
I think for me, just that, not just that, obviously teaching a method, right? But just the couple to couple aspect of it. We've been so blessed by the couple that taught us, and the couples that we have met through this ministry that have, really helped us, because this can feel very lonely sometimes. Like, are we the only ones using this out there? Like, and it's so nice to have that support and to know other couples through this, and share stories and like, oh, how many times have your kids stolen your thermometer, or things like that. We truly, I think, have been blessed by that, and couples, and not just about supporting each other in NFP, but just in marriage as a whole, right? Like wanting to give marriages the best chance possible. And I think NFP is really a tool that does that, because you have to communicate, and you have to learn to trust your partner and honor them and respect them, in order for the method to work. And then that has like ripple effects into the rest of your marriage of building that communication and that love and that trust.
Yeah. I'd almost wonder like where we would be, could this even be possible without CCL? Like, imagine a world where we didn't have a mentor couple or a couple teaching us saying, hey, this really works, Like, imagine a world where our only option was with the method, and everyone knew that, it didn't work. And then we have so many pressures from society saying, hey, don't do that, just use contraception. And if we didn't even have any science and all this stuff behind it, and our other network of people telling us, hey, they're wrong. It does work. It brings fruit to a marriage. We might have jumped off the ship some time ago. Just without it. I really applaud those that started the ministry, cause how did they get on the ship in the first place without this network? But we are so glad they did, because here we are, and we hope to invite others to join us on this wonderful voyage.
Oh, that was lovely. That's beautiful. Yeah, that's a great way to end, right? Beautiful ending to our interview. Thank you. Oh, I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you so much.